everybody, my name is KirkpattieCake. I'm an author and robot, and today we're going to be talking about the ever-frightening, never-easier query letter, because query letters are... But before we get started, just a couple of announcements. Number one, LBRY, check it out. April is up and waiting for you guys to just submit away all of your fiction that matches the prompt. And if you submit, you will be read. Follow the rules and you'll be read in April. The rules are fairly minimum. We just have a good time here. I promise. At least I don't do any judging. Now, the second thing is Dead and Drive audiobook is on its way. It's going to be the best audiobook in audiobook history by the incredibly talented Kieran Reagan. His Twitch is linked down below, and future projects, I'm pretty sure he's going to be reading audiobooks when he records on his Twitch channel. It's a lot of fun to join in the reading and the conversation in the community around his page. So if you have a Twitch and you want to see what it's like for live audiobook production, he is a great resource to check out, a guy to follow, and very, very talented. Just be nice. We just like niceness around here, niceness and death, and a little bit of depression, I've noticed. So, like, work with that. Finally, if you like what I do on this channel, please remember to like it, share, subscribe it. You guys are the only reasons that I'm here, and you guys sharing my videos are probably the only way that they get traffic, they get exposure, and I know if I'm doing anything right. So if you like what I do here, leave me a comment and let me know what you actually like that I do here, or if you have any videos that you'd like to see me do more of, or any topics you'd like me to cover. I do consider that kind of stuff, so let me know down below, share this, like it. It means the world to me. So, without further ado, let's get started. The query letter. What is the query letter? Why does everybody always want a query letter? And how the frick do we do it? Well, first off, I have to preface this with every different segment of the book creation process. They're all different skills. So when it comes to doing the synopsis, when it comes to doing a log line, when it comes to doing a pitch or an elevator pitch, when it comes to doing the query letter, when it comes to doing the thing that goes on the flap or the description on the back of the book, these are all, when it comes to just talking about your book, period, these are all different skill sets that you have to learn. You might be a fantastic writer, the best writer that the world has ever seen. Your novel is the greatest thing that has ever been written. It is going to be the top of every charts, and just, they're going to make so many movies out of this after you die. But you being able to craft an incredible novel is a completely different skill set to writing an effective synopsis, writing an effective query letter, writing an effective pitch, because, well, with your novel, you can put all of your brilliant ideas into so many words as you need, typically. But with your query letter, you're trying to tell somebody how brilliant your novel is in as little amount of time as possible. So you're trying... And that requires you to, one, shrink it down to just the essentials, but two, to have just enough detail in those essentials that your work stands out against everything else that might be slightly-ish similar to it, right? And to have just enough detail in it that it might pick at the heartstrings or pick at the nostalgia of whoever you're sending the query letter to. So, first off, what is a query letter? The short answer is a query letter is basically a business proposal that goes to either agents or small presses, because big publishers require an agent for you to submit to them. A query letter contains all of the essential information someone would need to have in order to decide whether or not they wanted to start reading your book or take a look at your book as a possible business proposal. And I think this is one of the things that really, really needs to be hit home, is that a business letter is, and I think this is one of the things that really, really needs to be hit home, is that a query letter is a business proposal, because you're sending this letter to a business professional with the proposition that they will be interested in what you've written in your product, and they will take this product and pitch it to investors. Now, these investors are the publishers, are the connections that they have, and they'll say, hey, you should put money into producing this because I believe in this project. So, I mean, really, it is an investment proposal. Now, the key elements of a query letter include the logistics, such as your novel's length. By word count, pages don't matter. You'll also include the genre of the book, the title of the book, any subtitles if it's a series or a standalone or has potential for a series, and if you know the target audience. You could also put in there any comparable titles that you might have, like with Dead and Drive. I said it was like Clue, the movie Clue meets And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, and so you can put any comp titles in there as well. The comp titles, typically they like you to do more contemporary comp titles to show that people are publishing that type of book, but I personally think it's more important to know what exactly gives vibes of that book as opposed to what's current, but I'm not an agent, so when it comes to finding talent or talking about talent or anything, I don't really care about the name. I don't really care about the background. I don't really care if nobody's done it in 20 years, because you don't become a trailblazer by doing the things that everybody else is doing in the last couple of years. So I'm like, show me your ideas as honestly as you can and go from there. Other things to include in your query letter might be a brief author bio so that they can get to know who you are, and that's only really necessary if you feel like there are things that person should know about you. An author bio could include any writing groups that you're in, if you went to college for writing, or anything that you studied if it relates back to what you're writing about, because then that can show some kind of investment in the craft. It can show that you care enough about the craft that you are going to classes or to seminars or to conferences or are involved in a workshop group, so they're not necessary. So your agent that you're sending this to, so that the agent you're sending this to is not necessarily getting a first draft novel. You're actually invested in this. And if you've been published before, because you can put that in there as well, and it will give a little more credence. Whether you were published, whether it were short stories that were published or for full novels by other publishers, put that in there if it's something that you want them to know. You want to do a brief 1 to 2 paragraph synopsis of the story. You want to do a hook. What is the thing that makes this thing stand out, that it's what this story is about, that is going to grab the reader. Do a personalized greeting. You always want to put the name of the agent up at the top, not just hello insert, or hello madame or mister, or the worst case scenario, the wrong name because you copied and pasted the query letter from one email to another and you could not even be bothered to check if you fix that name. And then finally, a polite closing, thanking the agent for their time in reading your letter. A couple things to keep in mind as you work on your query letter. Number one is you want to personalize it. Like I said, you want the greeting to be, hello, Mr. Beckins. Keep your letter personalized so the agent knows that you've invested at least this much time in them. Other ways that you can personalize a letter is if you met that agent at a conference. You could say, hey, we met at XYZ writing conference. We said hello. We talked about this, and it was very nice meeting you. You can also say things like, I have read this book that you were the agent for. I am similar to this other person, or I enjoy, find areas of interest that you and them might have in common. Anything like that makes it more personal, that makes it look like you've spent some time investing in this person, and that can be good. But you also want to keep that very, very small. Don't cross into stalker zone and put so much information in there. Keep it small, keep it simple, 1 sentence, 2 sentences tops, to connect with that agent on a personal level, or to the press on a personal level, where you can say, hey, this is a small press. Hey, I've read your book like this. I very much enjoyed it. Or, hey, I saw that your book received this award. Congratulations. It's one of my favorite books, blah, blah, blah. But also don't lie, because you're trying to build a relationship with these people, and building a relationship on a lie does not usually turn out very well. I'm just going to put it out there. I know that you want something. The agent knows that you want something. So don't brown nose thinking that the agent doesn't know that you're sucking up, because they will. They will. When you're crafting your query letter, adhere to the submission guidelines. So some agents or publishers might have specific requests for the query letter, such as extra logistical information to include or get rid of. They might say don't include a bio. They might require you to submit a bio. They might ask you to submit pages. They might not ask you to submit pages. Follow their guidelines to the T, because agents typically delete your query letter immediately without reading it if they see anything that does not follow the guidelines. So name, sending files, sending chapters, making sure that their name is at the top of the email, all of that good stuff. Follow the guidelines. Another thing to do is when you're writing the query letter, which is your synopsis and your logistical information, specifically the synopsis, try to mirror the tone of the narrative of your novel. So if your novel is a psychological horror and it's very, very tense, then try to mirror the tension and the voice that is from the novel. If you're writing a fantasy, try to keep or an urban fantasy, try to keep the voice of your narration, try to keep the tone of your query letter similar to that of the novel. You can even imagine yourself as the character of whoever the narration is of the novel when you're writing it, and it can be very hard. Don't be depressed or disappointed if you have a very hard time doing this, because writing query letters is so hard, man. It is so difficult. So do not be down on yourself for this situation. It's not easy for any of us. When you're giving your introduction for your book, try to keep it short and catchy and again, matching the narration, the tone of the narration. Do not get bogged down by giving so much exposition, so much backstory, so many specific little details from your narration. This can be especially easy in sci-fi and fantasy because you want to give all of these cool names of these places and this treasure and these new cities and planets that you've made up. There's not a place for that in the query letter because the agent has not actually become invested in your story yet. You got to get them invested before you throw all of the details at them, all right? Kind of similar to when we were talking about elevator pitches, is you got to get them interested before you can throw all of the detail at them. Using short sentences to show action, movement, tension, and there was another word I wanted, but I can't remember it now. But using short sentences will help you write a quicker pace story, or will help you write a quicker pace query letter that shows movement, that shows action, that shows that you can write a story. And that's often what agents are looking for when they're reading query letters, is they want to see that you know how to write a story, write a captivating thing. And they'll use that letter as a way to see whether you can write or not, even if it's not accurate to the way that you write a novel, because like I said, writing a query letter is a separate skill to writing a book. It is still going to be used to guess whether you can write a book. I kind of just said this, but I will reiterate. Forget some of the details, forget some of the bigger details of your novel, and focus on the main points of tension and plot drive. So there might be 1.5 million subplots going through your story, this tension between these characters, this drama between these other characters, this love octopolis between these 8 characters over here. Not necessary in the query letter. Focus only on what is the central issue of the plot. What does the main character want through the whole thing? What does the main character want or need through the plot line or whenever it changes? I either do this from what does the inciting incident cause the character to need. So in one case, with Dust, the inciting incident is this Galaxy Most Wanted gets onto her ship and now she needs to get rid of him. That's her big thing. With Dead End Drive, it's Kelly needs to survive the night because his house is, now full of a bunch of freaking killers. With Bleed More, Body More, Joey needs to find what happened to her friend when she went to pick up his car. The inciting incident was finding him not in his car when he gave a call to have it picked up. So a lot of the time you can find what you need to put in the query letter by finding what is the thing that changed this character's life at the beginning of it. So if you're not sure where to start, think, when my character was just going along the status quo, what made them change what they were doing? And that's more or less what you need to put in the query letter. You don't have to do the climax of whether they're successful or not. You can leave that open in the query letter. You just got to have the agent know that you know where your story, what the kickoff is and where your story is going. Because then they're going to use that impulse or that note in your query letter when they're reading your first 10 pages or your first 50 pages or your first 3 chapters, whatever it is. And they're going to use what you put in your query letter to gauge whether or not your character is following that stepping ground and putting those drops of those hints down that this is where the story is going to go, and that's going to contribute to whether or not they accept your story. So in summary, you don't have to spoil the ending of your book in the query letter, but you do have to show the receiver of your query letter that you know what your book is about and what gets it started. Some things to avoid when you're writing your query letter include bragging about yourself, being too arrogant, too pompous, I'm going to be the next J.K. Rowling. they're not likely to believe that. I'm sorry, even if you are, they're not likely to believe that. Also, you want to avoid self-deprecation or instilling doubts in the agent, because what you are doing is asking them to invest their time, their money, their reputation in supporting you as an author, in selling your product. And you really can't expect somebody else to want to sell your product to their friends, to their colleagues, if you don't believe it, if you don't believe in yourself. So you have to believe in yourself, at least somewhat. There's like this nice little melting ground between bragging and self-doubt that you have to live in where you go, it's pretty good, it's gonna be exciting, it's not terrible. At least you have to believe it's not terrible when you're pitching it to somebody else. And I think, honestly, I see this a lot on social media of people just going like, oh, my writing is so crappy, it's terrible, blah, blah, blah. Like, to have the self-doubt is one thing, for sure, and it's a very... what's the word that I want? It's very sympathetic and very empathizable to a lot of other people, because we all know what it's like to feel down. But I don't think that it's personally a winning strategy to say, bro, dude, I suck, my books so suck, to try to get people to buy them. If you're actively selling that book, it is rarely a good idea to just be like, this sucks. But that is personal opinion on marketing, and that's not what this video is about, so take that as you will. Another thing to avoid is try not to look like you're stalking. Like I mentioned, be personalizing the letter, but with how social media has been adopted, you can really easily look like you're stalking people. And just be careful when you're including any sorts of details in your letters that you don't cross the line into creepy, freaky ding dong. And then finally, avoid coming off as unprofessional or insulting to either the agent or the agent's colleagues or any of your writing colleagues. Like if you've had bad experiences with other authors or with other agents, do not include in your letter stuff like, oh, see, I'm sending you this letter because I talked to Peter Jensen at Peter Jensen's literary agency, and he is such a dolt. And I know that you're not a dolt because you're not going to, you know what good books look like. Again, business relationship. This is a business relationship. Be professional, be respectful, and your relationship with this agent or with this publisher should have nothing to do with anybody else. Other things to consider with your query letter are that there's no setup for a query letter. It can either start with the logistics and then go into the synopsis, or start with the synopsis and then go into the logistics. Personally, when I was doing query letters, I like to start with the synopsis. I like to start with the hook, then do a synopsis, and then do the logistics, because that gave me the chance to introduce the story and then say, and here is the audience for the story. Here's how long it is, and blah, blah, blah. But you can do that however you want and whatever flows best for you. Your query letter should be no longer than one single-spaced page. So 2 pages is too long. And even that, if it's all the way to the bottom of the page, is kind of long for most query letters. So the people that receive these letters are often receiving them a lot and have a very little time to go through as many as they already do. And make sure you show you know how to write compelling and concise prose in your letter. Also, remember that this is a business proposal. I said it before, I'll say it again. You're creating a letter to work with somebody, to ask them to be your business partner for a long-run project, to invest in you and your career, and that there is something in it for them like any other investor project. Down the line, if you don't feel like this agent is working for you, like they're not submitting your work, they don't have the connections that you need, they just don't like your work, your personalities just don't work together, it's okay to let them go and go find another agent. You should always look for an agent who will understand you as a person and whom you will feel comfortable talking to, because if you don't feel comfortable with that person, then your relationship and your goals will suffer. They also won't be able to sell your book as well if you guys kind of have a rifty relationship. So I know that there's a lot of desperation to just find an agent who will believe in your project, but it can also make a book live or die if you do not find an agent that believes in you, believes in your voice, believes in your vision, and is willing to sell that to other people they know that feel the same way. Now, short story submissions don't technically take a query letter, but you can do a basic letter note when you're sending, which will obviously include the name of the press or the publisher that you're sending the short story to. And typically when I'm writing to those, I say, hello, I would like to submit my short story you know, Blessed Be Our God to your magazine or anthology for consideration, and I pick whichever one that is. It is complete at X amount of words. Thank you for your time. So you just introduce title, consideration, you know, be kind, how long it is, and then a polite ending. In addition to that, if you've ever read anything from the publisher for these magazines or anthologies, or you know, the straight up publisher, if you're sending your book to a small press, you can include if you've read books from their press, if you've enjoyed books from their press, or you can compare your work to titles that they already have, because that can help an agent or a publisher feel like your book belongs with their stuff already. They can more easily imagine your book along their stuff because your book is like stuff they already have, or your book is like books they've already represented. So that can help, and it can show that you've invested somewhat in what they're doing. But don't just grab random titles, because they will know if you're lying when they read your book and it is nothing like the title that you referenced. Again, relationships built on lies rarely ever work, and this publication stuff, this agenting stuff especially, is a long-term relationship. Unless you break up after like the first week. So in finding people that have complementary personalities with you and that have this, that are on the same wavelength-ish, where you guys feel like you can be comfortable with one another, it is so, so important for the long-term business goals. And when you find those people, make sure they know that you appreciate them, because it is hard to find people that you just work with and want to continue to work with, and that you want to continually build up each other, and you just, it's great. It's great. Every business relationship should be like this, where you're just grateful, you send energy back and forth. And that's how it should be with an agent. That's how it should be with querying, is you want the mutual good energy, you want that mutual respect, and you believe in each other. So that's the end of the video kind of rant here. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'm sure this didn't really answer how to write a query letter. When it comes to query letters, there are so many examples online that there's really no one way to write them. Even if you go and look at, well, what was a successful query letter? And then you could try to emulate that. But what it really takes for a query letter is the right writing, the right story, the right person at the right time. So a query letter that worked before, if it had gone to the wrong agent, and let's face it, most query letters go to so many agents before just one is like, I'm down for that. And so it's because you had that, it's because you had that proper combination at the right time that it worked. You might have a query letter that is very similar to somebody else's story and query letter, and you send it to the same agent and they just don't click with it for whatever reason. So don't get disappointed. Querying is so hard. It's so depressing. It's really depressing, but it doesn't necessarily reflect what's in your book, the value of your stuff in the marketplace. Just know this is a hard game, and that querying is a separate skill. And really the point of writing in general, well, the exercise of writing, being a published author, getting published, and having your work in public to be judged and have you judged personally for it, it's all an exercise in building your self-esteem and your personal confidence, and your personal competence too, right? Something like that. So the trenches, they're there. That's what I've got to say. 1 to 2 paragraphs for your query letter, your hook, and your logistical information. Think of it as a business letter. Think of it as a characterized business letter. And this is the other thing, bounce your ideas off of crit partners. Send your query letter to people who either don't know your book, to people in your writing group, and you can even ask people who have read your book, who are in your crit group, to write little paragraphs, maybe a synopsis of your story in 1 to 2 paragraphs, and then ask if you can take those and use those in your query letter after editing them a little bit, right? So use whatever cheats you have to in order to get the best representation of your book, and make it matter. This is not something to skimp on or to just say, well, I'll take whatever I can get because at least then I'm represented. Make it matter. Care about yourself, care about your book, and keep the positivity high. It's tough out there. And I think that's all on query letters. If you have any questions or comments regarding this or something else in the future, let me know in the comments down below. Let me know your thoughts on querying query letters. If you've been in the trenches, I'd love to hear from you. And I will see you in the next video. Have a good weekend and don't die. Bye. Dear Madam Astra, That's me. We regret to inform you that on August 1st, your employer, Agatha Jane Benedict, owner of the Benedict estate, peacefully passed away in her sleep. Oh, that's so sad. Wait. Let me try that again. Oh my goodness. That's so sad. Yeah, I think I'm ready. With millions of dollars on the line and the opportunity for your every need to be taken care of for life. Tell me, is there anything more valuable than that? I didn't think so. Dead End Drive is a dark comedy novel that makes 3 promises. 1, an illustrious estate in Louisiana. 2, an opulent dinner affair for all in attendance. And 3, and most importantly of all, lots and lots of competitive murder. So if you're looking for a cozy book to settle in with for the spooky season, I've only got one question for you. Will I see you at the will reading?
Only losers lose!